Hi there, my name's Margie from Hush Education, and this is the first of a series of probably about 5 videos that just cover some of our classroom topics for children from perhaps about the age of 7 up until about 12 or 13 years old. We're going to be talking about bodies, we're going to be talking about puberty when bodies change, and we're going to be talking about reproduction as well. These are for children, but it is always our preference that a grown-up or an adult sits with a child, so they're there to answer any questions and to just help them out if there's anything they need to talk about as we go through the videos. Today's is very, very short. It's sort of the introduction to everything we're going to talk about. We do need to know the correct, let's say the scientific or the medical names of body parts if we're going to talk about puberty and if we're going to talk about reproduction as well. Now, these body parts are often called the private parts of the body. They can be called the reproductive system or the sex organs. And as I said, the names we're going to use are the names you might hear a doctor use, rather than necessarily the names your friends might be saying, or even your family words might be different as well. It's really good to know these words. It's always good to add to your vocabulary, but in this case, it's great to know these names for future when you want to talk about bodies and talk about how bodies might be changing and your life might be changing. Also, if you need to go to a doctor or a medical person and need to talk about your body, and especially if someone breaks your body safety rules and you need to report to someone about something that might have happened, and you'll have the correct words, the science or the medical words to use when you talk about your body. Now, I've got 2 funny looking people on posters behind me here, but just before we start looking at some of the internal or the organ parts of the body, I always like to start with the outside. So what I'm going to show you first is just a picture of some bodies, and these bodies might look a little bit like yours, they might look a lot like yours, or they might be quite different, and that's okay. These bodies are what some people might typically call a body that was assigned male at birth and a body that was assigned female at birth. But as I said, different bodies look different on different people. And isn't that great? Wouldn't it be awful if every single person looked exactly the same? I think it'd be a little bit boring. So we've got 2 people here and they've got their underwear on. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take their underwear off. And as I said, you'll see what the bodies look like. Perhaps if you saw someone who just got out of the shower, might even be yourself in a mirror. Or maybe you saw a little baby or a child getting bathed or having their nappy changed. These are the body parts that you might see on those people. So if I take this one off here, we've got a body that has a body part that's called a penis. And the penis is basically a tube made of skin with an opening at the end. The opening's for wee to come out. The opening's also for a fluid called semen with sperm in it to come out. Behind the penis is sort of this bag or pouch of skin. A lot of people use the word sac, and that pouch of skin is actually called the scrotum. That might be a new word for you. You might not have heard that word before. That's okay. On this body, if we take the underwear off, we'll find that this person has what we call the vulva. And the vulva is the outside part, all the different folds and creases of skin on a person who may have been assigned the label female at birth. The vulva is on the outside. All the rest of this person's reproductive organs or sex organs are inside the body. So we'll look at those in just a minute. You'll also notice that all our bodies here have nipples. Everybody has nipples, and on some bodies, mostly bodies assigned female, during puberty, the breast tissue behind the nipple starts to swell and grow and develop, and so they become much more prominent. But as we'll talk about, that's also quite common to happen on this body here as well. If I could turn these pictures around, both these people would have a bottom. Everyone's got a bottom, and that is another private part of someone's body as well. Okay, let's have a look at our bodies behind me here. This first body has the external parts that we were talking about. So it has that penis, the tube made of skin and flesh, and it has the scrotum, the sac or pouch of skin behind the penis. Now, the reason that these bodies have that scrotum is so that they can hold some really interesting and really important organs. And those organs are called testicles. Now, you might have heard them called different things. Some people say balls. Some people say nuts. Some people say things like willy for penis. But remember, we said we might try and talk about some of the scientific or the medical terms today. Now, on this body, the testicles have a really, really important job to do. And we're going to talk about it a lot more in the videos that are coming up after this one. But I'll just say really quickly that the testicles are where microscopic cells, the tiniest cells in any human body, are produced. And those cells are called sperm. So we'll talk about that more in the next video. On this body, you'll see we've got the vulva, which we already spoke about. And then we've got this really, really terribly stretchy tunnel, which is called the vagina. And the vagina is inside the body, but it does have an opening within the vulva. Also in that vulva area is an opening in front of the vagina that's called the urethra, and that's where pee comes out or wee comes out. And of course, both bodies have an opening towards the back that's called the anus, and that's where poop comes out. The vagina in this body joins on to an organ that looks a little bit like an upside down pear or a light bulb. And this organ is called the uterus. Between the vagina and the uterus, there's a structure that's called the cervix. And the cervix has a very, very, very tiny opening in it. But that opening, at certain stages within a person's life, is able to dilate until it's actually 10 centimetres in diameter. We'll talk about that in our last video when we talk about babies, reproduction. The uterus, sometimes called the womb, has two long, very thin tubes coming off it. Now, these tubes are called the fallopian tubes. And on the ends of the fallopian tubes are two more little organs, and these are called the ovaries. On this body, when this person, sometimes called a female, goes through puberty, these ovaries will already contain hundreds of thousands of tiny egg cells. And each one of those egg cells or ova is no bigger than one single individual grain of sand. When a baby girl is born, there will already be millions of these egg cells in her ovaries. They developed as that baby girl was developing. By puberty, as I said, there's about 400,000 of those left, and we're going to talk about the purpose of those cells in the next couple of videos when we talk about puberty and some of the sex-specific puberty changes. So we just call them eggs, but some people will call them ovum or an ova as well. You can see on this picture here that the breasts have developed on this body, and that means this person might have started to go through this stage that we call puberty. So we already now know the names of our body parts. This one has external or outside body parts called the penis and the scrotum, and inside the scrotum are the testicles. This one has outside body part called the vulva. Inside body parts, we've got the vagina, we have the uterus or womb with the cervix in between, the fallopian tubes and the ovaries. Now on this body, the vulva area changes quite considerably when a person goes through puberty. Remember I said it's all those different folds and creases of skin. Some of those parts within the vulva area are called the clitoris, which is for pleasure, and also the labia, which some people call the lips of the vagina. So we'll talk about how those change when we talk about puberty, starting from our next video. Thanks for watching. Come back again tomorrow and we'll have some more information for you. Bye.